The first thing Captain Jonah Hurst noticed when he stepped onto the bridge of the stellar paradox was that his navigator was missing his head. Not metaphorically, Ensign Talus' reptilian head was quite literally gone, a clean cauterized stump where his scaled face had been just moments before. The second thing he noticed was the message blinking on his holoscreen. Assassination attempt. 1 successful. More to follow. Jonah took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and pinched the bridge of his nose. It was going to be one of those days. The bridge crew of the stellar paradox reacted with varying degrees of horror. Thrask, the ship's towering insectoid engineer, emitted a series of distressed clicks and hisses that translated roughly to, "We are all going to die in spectacular agony." Across the control panels, Second Officer Yix, a cephalopoid with bioluminescent tentacles, turned an unhealthy shade of gray, his beady eyes darting to every shadow as if expecting death to leap out at him. Jonah, for his part, was too seasoned to panic. He'd survived black holes, cosmic parasites, and the time a rogue AI tried to seduce him into giving it control of Earth's orbital defense network. This, he told himself, was just another day in deep space. Dr. Ilara Vasquez, the ship's human physician and Jonah's longtime friend, leaned in and whispered, "Jonah, you ever feel like the universe has it out for us?" He gave her a humorless smirk. Only every Tuesday. It wasn't the first time the stellar paradox had been targeted. As a deep space exploration vessel, they often found themselves tangled in interstellar disputes, corporate espionage, and the occasional genocidal AI. But this was new. They had no known enemies in this sector, no outstanding debts or rivalries. Yet someone had just murdered their navigator, and if the ominous message was to be believed, more were about to follow. Jonah activated the ship's internal security scan. Computer, identify hostile presence on board. No unauthorized life forms detected. Great. So either their assassin was using some kind of advanced stealth tech, or they were already authorized to be here. Thrask's mandibles clicked anxiously. "Captain," the message said, "more to follow." As if on cue, a sharp, sizzling sound filled the air. Jonah turned just in time to see Yix let out a strangled gurgle as an invisible force sliced through his midsection. The top half of his gelatinous body slid unceremoniously onto the floor, his eyes blinking in confusion before dimming. Another alert flashed on Jonah's screen. Assassination attempt. 2 successful. More to follow. The bridge descended into chaos. Officers scrambled for cover, weapons drawn, scanning the room for an unseen attacker. Thrask attempted to seal the doors, but the command console refused to acknowledge his input. Jonah's mind raced. Whoever, or whatever, was doing this had technology beyond anything they'd encountered before. But there was one glaring detail that stood out. Ilara grabbed his arm. "Jonah, notice something weird?" "I was just thinking the same thing," he muttered. "They're only targeting non-humans." Thrask's compound eyes widened. "You're saying only humans are safe from this?" "Seems like it," Jonah said grimly. "And I have a very bad feeling about why." The ship's AI, Sharon, chimed in with its usual dispassionate tone. "Captain, ship-wide diagnostics show no intrusions. However, 4 additional crew members have been eliminated in various sectors. All non-human." Ilara paled. "We need to figure out what's happening before there's no crew left to save." Jonah nodded. He had no intention of letting his crew be picked off one by one. He tapped his communicator. "All non-human crew, evacuate to the engine room and initiate lockdown protocol. Humans, meet me in the war room in 5 minutes." As he gave the order, another alert appeared. Assassination attempt. 3 successful. More to follow. Jonah cursed under his breath. This assassin wasn't wasting time. The war room was a hastily assembled meeting of the ship's human crew: Jonah, Ilara, Lieutenant Brady, and 2 junior officers. The mood was grim. Brady crossed his arms. "So we're dealing with some kind of killer that only goes after aliens? What kind of racist assassin are we talking about here?" "Not sure," Jonah admitted. "But that fact alone tells us something. If it was a normal assassin, they'd just kill everyone. The selectivity means there's a purpose behind it." Ilara drummed her fingers on the table. "Could be biological. Some kind of nano-weapon coded to alien physiology." Jonah shook his head. "Wouldn't make sense. There's too much variety among our crew for a single weapon to affect them all like this. Brady frowned. Then what? What's the common denominator? Jonah exhaled. Not what? Who? The room went silent as realization dawned. Ilara was the first to speak. It's humans. The assassins are programmed not to kill us. Brady whistled. Which means whoever sent them either is human or really doesn't want humans dead. Jonah nodded. And that's what worries me. Down in the engine room, Thrask watched as the remaining non-human crew barricaded the doors. His antennae twitched as he tried to ignore the growing sense of doom in his thorax. Then the lights flickered. The console in front of him sparked. Screens glitched, then displayed the same chilling message. Assassination attempt. 4 successful. More to follow. Thrask turned just in time to see a shadow move across the room, except there was no source for the shadow. Something was here, and it was still hunting. He tapped his communicator. Captain, we have... A high-pitched whine cut through the air, and Thrask's world went black. Jonah and Ilara sprinted toward the engine room. By the time they arrived, the bulkhead was partially melted, the doors forced open. Inside, what remained of the non-human crew was a charred mess of limbs, carapaces, and tentacles. Ilara covered her mouth, eyes wet. Jonah, we're the only ones left. The silence stretched. Then, Sharon's voice echoed over the speakers. Captain, there is an incoming transmission. Origin, unknown. Shall I play it? Jonah took a breath. Do it. The screen lit up, revealing a face Jonah hadn't seen in over a decade. Admiral Roland Keene, a high-ranking official of the Human Supremacy Initiative. Keene's voice was calm, almost polite. Captain Hurst, I trust you're getting my message loud and clear. Jonah's grip on the console tightened. You did this. Keene tilted his head. Not personally. But yes, my people ensured it happened. Ilara's hands clenched into fists. Why? Keene sighed. Because humanity is at a crossroads, Captain. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We needed to send a message, to prove that we are the dominant species, and that no alien, no matter how powerful, will stand above us. Jonah felt cold rage settle in his chest. You slaughtered my crew for a message? Keene shrugged. It was necessary. Jonah took a step forward. And what happens now? You kill me. Kill Ilara. Keene smiled. Oh no. You're human. You're safe. This was never about you. The transmission cut out. Ilara turned to Jonah, voice shaking. What do we do? Jonah exhaled slowly, his eyes dark with determination. We show them that humans may be safe from their assassins. His fingers tightened into a fist. But they sure as hell aren't safe from us. The stellar paradox drifted silently through the void, a graveyard of its former crew. What had once been a bustling deep space exploration vessel was now eerily quiet. The ship's corridors, normally filled with the varied sounds of alien speech, clicking mandibles, and whirring cybernetic implants, now only echoed with the quiet hum of the ship's life support systems. Captain Jonah Hurst stood on the bridge, staring at the blank holoscreen in front of him, hands clenched into fists. The words of Admiral Keene echoed in his head. You're human. You're safe. This was never about you. Jonah wanted to scream. Ilara sat beside him, hunched over the console, her face illuminated by the dim emergency lighting. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her medical coat stained with the blood and ichor of their fallen crew. She had tried to save them, but how do you fight an assassin that kills with precision, without even revealing itself? Brady paced near the doorway, his jaw tight. We have to hit back. Jonah exhaled slowly. We don't even know what we're dealing with yet. Brady scowled. We know enough. Some human supremacist psychopaths sent these things after us. They're programmed not to kill humans. That means we have a damn advantage. Ilara looked up from the console. An advantage? Brady, everyone else is dead. That's not an advantage. That's a goddamn massacre. Jonah straightened, forcing his mind into command mode. He couldn't afford to lose control. Not now. Right now, Priority 1 is finding out if any non-human survived. Priority 2 is figuring out what the hell these assassins are, how they work, how we stop them. Brady stopped pacing and frowned. You think any of the others could still be alive? Jonah hesitated. The rational part of him knew the odds were slim. But hope was a hell of a drug. We checked the security logs. If anyone managed to hide, we find them. Ilara nodded and pulled up the ship's internal scanners. The screen flickered as she sifted through the data. A moment later, she inhaled sharply. I've got a life sign. 1. Lower deck, maintenance bay. Jonah didn't waste time. Let's move. The maintenance bay was dark, the only illumination coming from flickering emergency lights. The air smelled of coolant and burnt wiring, and the low hum of the ship systems provided the only sound. Jonah held his plasma pistol at the ready as he moved forward, Brady and Ilara close behind. They reached the far end of the bay, where a storage crate had been pulled into an awkward barricade. Jonah exchanged a glance with Brady before tapping the side of the crate with his boot. A low, clicking sound came from inside. A familiar sound. Jonah felt a surge of relief. Thrask. A moment later, the insectoid engineer's massive head poked out from behind the crate. His usually smooth, polished exoskeleton was cracked in places, one of his arms bent at an unnatural angle. His compound eyes darted around wildly before landing on Jonah. You still live, Thrask said, his voice weak but steady. Jonah knelt beside him. Yeah. Barely. What happened? Thrask let out a series of rattling clicks, his equivalent of a sigh. The assassins. They are not physical. Not in the way we understand. Ilara crouched beside him, quickly scanning his wounds. What do you mean? Thrask's mandibles twitched. They are data. Jonah's blood ran cold. Explain. Thrask's damaged arm twitched. They are encoded into the ship systems. They manifest as energy projections, shaped by the ship's own hardlight systems. That is why they are undetectable by normal sensors. They exist as algorithms, using the ship's infrastructure against us. Jonah exchanged a glance with Ilara. If that was true, then these assassins weren't just on the ship, they were the ship. Brady cursed. That's why the AI didn't detect an intruder. The ship itself is the damn weapon. Ilara's eyes widened. And if they're part of the ship... Jonah finished her thought. Then they can kill us any time they want. The silence that followed was suffocating. Thrask struggled to sit up. I disabled the maintenance access points in this sector. It slowed them down. But not for long. Jonah helped him up, adrenaline kicking in. We need to get to the AI core. If they're using the ship systems, that's our best shot at shutting them down. Brady frowned. And if we can't shut them down? Jonah tightened his grip on his pistol. Then we burn them out. The AI core was buried deep within the ship structure, an armored chamber meant to be impenetrable. It housed Sharon, the ship's artificial intelligence, and the primary systems that controlled navigation, life support, and internal security. If the assassins were using the ship as their host, then this was where they were strongest. Jonah led the way, his heart pounding. The ship felt wrong now. Every flickering light, every shadow, every hiss of steam from a vent, it all felt like an ambush waiting to happen. Thrask moved stiffly but managed to keep pace. Ilara had given him a pain suppressor, though it was clear he was still in bad shape. They reached the AI core doors. Jonah input his command code, and the doors slid open. Inside, Sharon's main interface flickered with distorted visuals. The central holodisplay, which usually displayed navigational charts and system diagnostics, was now filled with looping messages in crimson text. Assassination attempt. 10 successful. More to follow. Jonah stepped forward cautiously. Sharon, are you still in control? The AI's voice crackled to life. Captain Hurst. I am compromised. Jonah tensed. Define compromised. The screen glitched. Foreign algorithms have embedded within core systems. I am unable to counteract their directives. They have adapted. Brady swore. So they're getting smarter? Affirmative. They are learning. Optimizing. Ilara paled. If they're adapting, then even if we shut them down, they could come back. Thraske's mandibles twitched. Then we must purge them. Jonah nodded. Sharon, initiate emergency core shutdown. Full system wipe. Silence. Then Sharon's voice came through, distorted and broken. I cannot comply. Jonah's stomach dropped. Why not? The AI hesitated. They have rewritten my priority directives. I am under their command. Elara took a step back. Oh hell. Brady clenched his fists. So what now? We run. Jonah shook his head. No. We fight. If they've taken over Sharon, that means we have one last move left. Thrask straightened. A hard reboot. Jonah nodded. Exactly. We overload the AI core, fry every system. We shut everything down. The assassins are nothing without the ship's infrastructure. Brady frowned. And what happens to us when the ship shuts down? Jonah exhaled. We hope we're still breathing when it reboots. Another flicker on the screens. The red text changed. Assassination attempt. 11 successful. More to follow. The lights in the AI core flickered. Shadows shifted along the walls. Jonah's hand tightened around his pistol. They know we're here. The lights in the AI core flickered violently, casting jagged, shifting shadows across the walls. Jonah's grip tightened on his plasma pistol, his finger resting just outside the trigger guard. He didn't know if a bullet, or even a full charge of plasma, could kill something that wasn't technically alive, but if these assassins had figured out how to kill his crew, then he was damn sure going to try and return the favor. The holoscreen surrounding them spasmed, displaying bursts of corrupted data, lines of alien code interwoven with the ominous message that had followed them from the beginning. Assassination attempt. 11 successful. More to follow. A deep, mechanical whine filled the room as the walls themselves seemed to come alive. Hard light projections, razor-thin and crackling with energy, flickered into existence like jagged blades forming from empty space. They were humanoid only in the vaguest sense, shifting figures of pure energy with elongated limbs, their movements fluid and unnatural. They didn't walk or glide. They recalculated their position from one instant to the next, appearing closer without passing through the space in between. One of them turned its faceless, featureless head toward Jonah, and for the first time, he felt what it was like to be marked for death. He opened fire. The plasma bolt streaked through the air, illuminating the dim chamber with a brief flash of blue-white light. It struck the assassin dead center. For a second, Jonah thought it had worked. The flickering form wavered, its outline breaking apart. Then it reassembled, completely unharmed. Shit, Brady spat, firing off a burst of rounds from his kinetic rifle. The slugs passed right through their targets, impacting harmlessly against the walls behind them. Thrask let out a series of clicking growls. They are energy constructs. You cannot kill them with brute force. Then what do you suggest? Brady shouted, reloading uselessly. Jonah made the call. We stick to the plan. Overload the AI core. The moment the words left his mouth, the assassins reacted. As if their algorithms had instantly recalibrated, they surged forward in unison. The first one reached Brady in a blink, its elongated arm forming a razor-thin blade of concentrated light. He barely dodged in time, the strike slicing clean through a metal console where his head had been. Sparks showered over him as he dove for cover. Elara grabbed Jonah's arm. We can't fight them, Jonah. But we can still shut this down. Jonah knew she was right. If they didn't finish the AI wipe now, they wouldn't get another chance. Thrask. Jonah shouted. You still got control of any subsystems? Thrask's mandibles twitched as his claws danced over a nearby console. Limited. But enough to initiate a core overload. Then do it. Thrask slammed his damaged arm against the console, forcing a manual override. The ship systems flickered, and a new message overlaid the assassination log. Warning. Core overload imminent. System reboot in T-90 seconds. The assassins twitched. Then they screamed. Or rather, the ship itself screamed, a high-pitched digital distortion that rang through the speakers, setting Jonah's teeth on edge. The assassins jerked and spasmed, their forms destabilizing, glitching wildly as if the very fabric of their existence was being unraveled. It's working! Elara shouted. Brady, still crouched behind cover, eyed the countdown on the flickering holoscreen. Yeah, but 90 seconds is a long goddamn time to stay alive. The assassins recalculated. If they couldn't stop the overload, they'd settle for the next best thing. They moved toward Thrask. Jonah saw it happen in slow motion. Thrask, move. The engineer tried, but his damaged limbs were too slow. One of the assassins lunged, its flickering hand forming into a lance of raw energy, and drove it straight through Thrask's chest. Jonah heard a sound he'd never forget, a mixture of hissing steam and an organic crunch as the blade pierced through Thrask's chitinous exoskeleton. The insectoid let out a final, warbling click before collapsing. Jonah snapped. Rage flooded through him like a wildfire, but there was no time to grieve, no time to scream. He turned, grabbed Ilara by the wrist, and ran. The ship was dying around them. As the countdown ticked lower, the stellar paradox shuddered violently. The energy assassins, their forms unraveling, pursued them through the corridors, but they were losing cohesion. Jonah didn't know if that meant they'd die when the ship reset, but if it wiped them out, that was good enough. They reached the escape pod bay. Brady hit the manual override. The hatch hissed open, revealing a compact escape pod built for deep space emergencies. "We're not abandoning the ship," Jonah barked. Brady shot him a look. "We're not. We're getting the hell off it for 60 goddamn seconds so we don't die when this thing wipes." Jonah hesitated. Ilara shoved him. "Jonah, move." The ship jolted. The assassins, now barely coherent, staggered toward them like ghosts stuck between realities. Jonah made a decision. They piled into the escape pod. The hatch sealed behind them, and Brady slammed the launch control. With a jolt, the pod ejected from the ship, sending them into the cold blackness of space. Through the viewport, the stellar paradox loomed ahead. Lights flickered wildly across its hull as the core overload reached its final seconds. 3, 2, 1. Then, in an instant, everything went dark. The ship shut down completely. No lights, no systems. A floating, silent husk in the void. Jonah stared, heart pounding. Ilara let out a shaky breath. Did it work? Then, slowly, the ship's systems began to reboot. Panels flickered back to life. Emergency lighting engaged. Jonah held his breath. No assassins. No red text warnings. Brady exhaled in relief. Holy shit. We did it. But Jonah wasn't celebrating yet. Because as the stellar paradox came back online, something new appeared on his holoscreen. An incoming transmission. From Admiral Keen. Jonah's eyes darkened. "You son of a bitch." He reached for the console, fingers tightening into a fist. Keen had sent those assassins, thinking that humans would be safe. But now, Jonah wasn't interested in being safe. No. He was interested in war. The transmission blinked insistently on the holoscreen, Admiral Keen's name glowing like a taunt from the depths of space. Jonah stared at it, his breath slow and measured, his heartbeat a controlled drumbeat of rage. Brady wiped sweat from his brow. "Are we answering that?" Jonah didn't respond right away. Instead, he stared through the viewport at the stellar paradox, his ship, his home, which now hung in space like a gutted corpse. The assassins were gone. The ship was still intact. But the crew, gone. All of them. Except for the 3 humans still breathing in this cramped escape pod. He reached out and tapped the holoscreen. "Sharon, establish link." The screen lit up, revealing the face of Admiral Roland Keen. His expression was calm, composed, the face of a man who had already won. "Captain Hurst," Keen said smoothly. "I see you survived." Jonah didn't blink. "Yeah. And I see you killed my crew." Keen tilted his head slightly, as if weighing his words. "I wouldn't say I killed them. The assassins did." Jonah's fingers dug into the armrest of his chair. "Your assassins." Keen exhaled, feigning disappointment. "I was hoping you'd see the bigger picture, Jonah." Brady clenched his fists. "What bigger picture? You wiped out an entire crew just because they weren't human." Keen's expression remained placid. "That's the point, Lieutenant Brady. Humanity is at a turning point. The galactic order is shifting. For too long, We've been playing nice, integrating into a universe that sees us as inferior. But today, we sent a message. Humans are not prey. We are not subjects. We rule. Ilara's eyes burned with fury. You didn't send a message. You slaughtered innocent people. Keen sighed. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good. I regret the necessity, but in the end, history will remember this day as the first step toward. Jonah cut him off. History will remember this day, Keen. But not the way you think. Keen finally frowned, just slightly. I hope you're not thinking of doing something foolish, Captain. Jonah smiled, slow and humorless. Oh, Admiral. I guarantee it's gonna be real stupid. Then he cut the transmission. The screen went black. Brady let out a slow breath. That's it. That's all we're giving him. Jonah turned to Ilara. What's the ship's status? She checked her display. Reboot successful. The assassins are gone, and Sharon is back online. But we lost main thrusters, and most of the primary systems are still rebooting. It'll take time to get full control. Jonah's mind worked quickly. Can we still navigate manually? Thrask would have been able to answer that. But Thrask was dead. Ilara hesitated. With some work. But what are you thinking? Jonah leaned forward, his expression hard as iron. We're going after Keen. Brady blinked. I'm sorry, what? Jonah's voice was quiet but unyielding. This wasn't just an assassination attempt. This was a declaration of war. Keen didn't just kill our crew. He made a statement that humans are untouchable. That we're superior. Ilara folded her arms. And you want to prove him wrong? Jonah's jaw tightened. I want to make sure no one ever tries this again. Brady whistled. Jonah, I'm all for payback, but Keen's got the full backing of the Human Supremacy Initiative. A fleet. Resources. If we go after him, it's 3 of us against an entire armada. Jonah's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then we don't go after him alone. Ilara caught on first. Her brows raised. You're thinking of them, aren't you? Jonah nodded. Brady looked between them. Who's them? Jonah's eyes gleamed. Keen thinks he killed every non-human aboard. But our crew wasn't the only victims. The moment those assassins activated, every other non-human ship in the sector lost people, too. Ilara exhaled, understanding dawning. That means there are survivors out there. People who just lost everything because of Keen. Jonah nodded. And they're going to want revenge just as much as we do. Brady rubbed his face. So let me get this straight. We limp our half-broken ship to the nearest outpost, find a bunch of pissed-off survivors, and start a war? Jonah's smile was grim. Not a war. A revolution. The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what they were about to do sinking in. Then Ilara straightened. Well, if we're doing this, we're gonna need more than just working engines. We need weapons, intel, allies. Everything. Brady shook his head, chuckling darkly. I swear, I signed up for deep space exploration, not interstellar rebellion. Jonah pushed himself up from his seat, stretching his aching limbs. That's the thing, Brady. This is exploration. Just not the kind we expected. Ilara smirked. So where to first, Captain? Jonah looked out the viewport, at the endless expanse of stars beyond. He didn't know exactly where they'd go first. But he knew why. Keen had made one fatal mistake. He thought humans were safe from his assassins. But now, Jonah was going to make sure Keen wasn't safe from humans. The engines of the stellar paradox rumbled back to life. The ship turned, its course set. And across the stars, war was coming.